He left her for power. Years later, one photo changed everything. His ex-wife, in a hospital bed, holding a baby, with his eyes. Now the coldest mafia boss in Chicago will burn his entire empire to find out if the child is his or his greatest betrayal. Chicago looked different from 40 floors up. The city was a constellation of gold and scarlet, a web of light wrapped around the lake, a living thing that breathed corruption and money. Ethan Voss stood before the glass wall, one hand tucked in his pocket, the other holding a tumbler of untouched whiskey. The liquid caught the skyline's reflection, and for a heartbeat he saw his own eyes staring back, cold, detached, pale as winter. He had built this kingdom from ash. Every skyscraper glittering below him carried his fingerprints. Every club, every dock, every crooked official owed him silence. At 28, he was Chicago's untouchable, a man born of violence and refined into precision. People whispered his name the way they whispered about ghosts, half in awe, half in fear. The White Wolf. No one called him that to his face. They didn't need to. The name was a warning, and warnings kept people alive. A soft chime from his phone broke the quiet. He almost ignored it. Business never stopped, but the sender's name froze him. Unknown. The message contained a single image. He frowned, tapped once, and the photo filled the screen. A hospital room, a woman in a pale gown, hair tangled, eyes tired but radiant. In her arms, a newborn wrapped in white. Ethan's grip loosened, the phone trembling for the first time in years. The woman's face pulled him back to a life he'd buried under steel and ambition. Lena Hart. He hadn't spoken her name aloud in years. Yet it rolled through his mind now, soft as smoke, cutting sharper than glass. His ex-wife, the only person who had ever made him hesitate before pulling a trigger. He took a step back from the window, breath uneven. It wasn't possible. She was supposed to have left the city, disappeared like a ghost. He had made sure of it, paid her silence with the money he thought would heal everything. But time had made a liar out of him. His eyes locked on the photo again. The baby's small hand peeked from the blanket, tiny fingers curled around nothing, reaching. The eyes, gosh, those eyes were ice blue. His blue, a slow ache pressed behind his ribs. For the first time in years, fear crawled into the heart of the White Wolf. He crossed to the bar, set the glass down, and steadied himself against the marble counter. The city's lights flickered on the surface of the liquor like burning stars. He remembered the last night he saw her, the argument, the silence that followed, the sound of the door closing behind him. He had walked out into the storm with nothing but his pride. 4 months of marriage. 4 years of regret. He had told himself love was a weakness he couldn't afford. That wealth would fill the hole she left. It hadn't. The phone buzzed again. A text followed the picture. She's finally here. No name. No explanation. Just that sentence, pulsing on the screen like a heartbeat. He stared until the letters blurred. A child. Hers. Maybe his. A life that existed beyond his empire, beyond his control. Ethan turned away from the window, moving through the silent penthouse. His footsteps echoed on the marble, steady, measured. The air felt colder now, as if the city itself had shifted. He paused at the grand piano near the center of the room. A thin layer of dust coated its surface. Lena used to play there, soft jazz in the middle of chaos. He had almost forgotten the sound. Almost. He sank into the leather chair beside the piano, leaned forward, and pressed his fingers together. The muscles in his jaw tightened. Emotions were dangerous. He'd learned that long ago. But this wasn't emotion. It was something older, heavier, something closer to instinct. He unlocked another screen on his phone, scrolling through encrypted contacts until he found the number he hadn't used in years. His most trusted operative, the one who handled problems that never reached daylight. He hit call. "Sir?" The voice answered, cautious. Ethan's tone was low, stripped of all pretense. "I need eyes on someone. Lena Hart. I want her location, her status, everything. Quietly." "Yes, boss. Anyone else looking for her?" Ethan's gaze drifted back to the window. Thunder rolled over the lake, low and distant like a promise. He felt the weight of every choice he'd made pressing down on him. "If anyone else is," he said, voice turning to steel. "Erase them!" The line went dead. He set the phone aside, exhaling slowly, trying to calm the storm rising inside him. But calm was a lie, and he knew it. Every instinct in him screamed that something was wrong. Lena's sudden reappearance wasn't coincidence. Someone had sent that photo for a reason. Ethan walked back to the glass wall. Down below, lightning flashed over the skyline, painting the towers in white for an instant before plunging them back into shadow. He whispered to his reflection, "What have you gotten yourself into, Lena?" The city didn't answer. It never did. Behind him, the elevator light blinked once. No one had called it. The digital display flickered, then died. A faint noise came from the hall, something metallic sliding against marble. Ethan turned, instincts sharp, heart hammering. His men were stationed outside. No one entered without clearance. He reached for the gun beneath the bar, moving silently toward the noise. The lights dimmed, then steadied. The noise stopped. Nothing but the hum of the city. He scanned the shadows until he saw it. An envelope slipped under the door. Plain white, no markings. He approached, weapon raised, and bent to pick it up. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. Fresh, the edges still damp. The same hospital room, the same woman. But this time, Lena wasn't smiling. Her eyes were wide, frightened. Scrawled across the bottom in black ink were 3 words. "He isn't yours." The tumbler on the bar cracked in his grip, shards glittering under the light. For a long moment, Ethan didn't move. The storm outside broke open, thunder roaring through the glass, lightning washing his reflection in silver. He looked down at the photo again, and his expression hardened, fear giving way to fury, sorrow burning into resolve. Someone was playing a game, and they had just made the first move against the white wolf. He slipped the photograph into his jacket pocket, picked up the phone once more, and spoke into the silence. His voice calm, deadly. "Find her," he said. Now the line clicked, outside. The storm swallowed the skyline. Inside, the ghost in the suit stood motionless. The hunter reborn. A new message blinked on his screen before he could lock it. No image this time, just text. Too late. "Ethan, she already knows." The city thundered again, but this time it sounded like war. Morning spilled over the Chicago skyline, all steel and light and noise. The city that once buried Lena Hart now stood beneath her feet. Inside the mirrored tower of Hart Industries, she moved like precision itself, heels striking marble, a rhythm sharp enough to command silence. Every head turned when she passed. Every whisper stopped at the click of her stride. Lena had become the story the city liked to tell, but couldn't explain. A woman who rose from nothing, who rebuilt her empire from the ashes of a broken marriage to the most feared man in Chicago. She didn't inherit power. She created it. No one mentioned his name in her presence, but she felt it in the way people looked at her, half respect, half fear. Ethan Voss wasn't just a ghost from her past. He was the shadow beneath her every triumph. On her office wall hung a painting she once loved, a coastal sunrise she'd bought when she still believed in second chances. Now it hung there as a reminder that light meant nothing without darkness to fight it. She glanced at the painting once, then turned her gaze to the skyline. The reflection in the glass showed a woman in control, but she knew what it had cost to become her. Ethan had taken everything, her peace, her heart, her faith in love, and she had turned that heartbreak into an empire. Her assistant Ava entered quietly. "The Russo representatives are online too, Mrs. Hart. They're waiting for your confirmation." Lena's expression didn't shift. "Patch them through." She pressed the intercom, and the voice that answered was smooth, male, accented. "Nikolai Russo, heir to the rival cartel." "Miss Hart," he said. "I hope the terms are acceptable." It's not every day a woman outbids Voss's own networks. Lena's lips curved slightly. I don't compete with ghosts, Mr. Russo. I build what they can't control. There was silence on the other end, then a low chuckle. Dangerous words coming from the woman he once owned. Her jaw tightened. No one owns me anymore. She ended the call before he could reply. For a moment, the silence in her office felt heavier than glass. She turned back to the window, her reflection staring back like a stranger she was still learning to live with. The deal was done. The contract signed, but beneath the satisfaction, an unease stirred, an instinct she had learned never to ignore. Ava reappeared. Security flagged something strange, Mom. Same car parked across the street for 2 days. Tinted windows, no plates. Lena's pulse didn't quicken. She simply walked to her desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out a small silver USB drive. She plugged it into her computer, bringing up the security feeds around the tower. There it was, the black car, sleek and idle. And she knew that model. Ethan's men used them. She zoomed in on the reflection of the building's glass, the faint glint of a camera lens pointed directly at her office. Her stomach turned, not with fear, but something colder, recognition. He had found her. Lena leaned closer to the screen and whispered, almost amused, "Your move, Ethan." Her voice was soft, but the challenge carried weight. She reached for her phone, dialing a number. "Initiate Protocol 11, she said. "Scramble my digital signature. If anyone tries to trace this office, I want them chasing ghosts." "Understood, ma'am," came the reply. When she hung up, her hand lingered on the phone. She remembered the last time she'd held it waiting for a call from him. Years ago, before the money, before the betrayal. He never called then. Now he was watching. That evening, the air changed. Chicago nights were never quiet, but tonight, the wind itself carried tension. At the Grand Aurora Hotel, the top floor glowed with amber lights. Lena stepped out of a black sedan, coat brushing her calves, confidence flowing like armor. Inside, the Russo meeting awaited. 5 men in suits, smiles too polished to be sincere. Nikolai Russo rose as she entered. "Miss Hart, you make an entrance worthy of your reputation." She smiled faintly, setting her briefcase on the table. "I don't care for entrances, Mr. Russo. I care for exits, clean ones," the men chuckled. But she didn't. Her gaze moved across the table, noting small details, a watch too expensive for its wearer, a trembling hand, a phone angled wrong. Lena had learned to see danger in the smallest things. They began to discuss logistics, routes, shipments, alliances. But Lena's attention kept drifting toward the window. The city below looked like it was holding its breath. Russo poured her a drink. "To new partnerships," she accepted but didn't drink. "To mutual survival," she corrected. They clinked glasses. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the window. The lights flickered once, twice. Something shifted in her chest. A memory. A flash of Ethan's voice years ago. "Never sit with your back to glass, Lena. The world always shoots from the shadows." Her fingers tightened around the glass. She turned subtly, scanning the skyline through the reflection. A glint, high up on a nearby building, too steady to be coincidence. Her body reacted before her mind did. She lunged sideways, glass shattering as the bullet tore through the window. The men ducked. Chaos erupting, chairs scraping, shouts in Russian, papers flying. The bullet lodged into the wall behind where she'd been sitting. Lena's breath came fast, not from fear, but from fury. She turned her gaze to the hole in the glass. The bullet had struck clean, precise, measured, an assassin's shot. But it wasn't the precision that chilled her. It was the tiny, metal crest embedded in the bullet's shell. Wolf's head engraved in silver, Ethan's family emblem. Her blood ran cold. Nikolai stood, hand hovering near his gun. "You said this meeting was private." "It was," Lena snapped. "Which means someone wants us to think he sent it." Russo glared. "Or maybe he did." She ignored him, walking to the shattered glass, staring out into the stormlit city. Far below, the black car was gone. Only the rain remained, tracing silent rivers down the window's cracks. She pressed her hand against the cool surface, her reflection fractured by spiderweb lines. "He wouldn't," she whispered. But even as she said it, doubt clawed through her. Maybe he would. The Ethan she once knew would have burned the world for control. Ava burst through the door, pale. "Ma'am, security breach in the garage. Someone accessed the executive elevator." Lena turned sharply. "How long ago?" "Less than a minute." Her pulse slammed in her ears. She grabbed the pistol hidden beneath her coat and strode to the hall. "Seal the exits. No one leaves this floor." They ran toward the elevator as the doors opened with a soft chime. The shaft was empty. Only a single object lay on the carpet, a white envelope, identical to the one Ethan had found hours earlier. Lena bent, picked it up and tore it open with shaking hands. Inside was a photograph, the same hospital room, the same baby. Only this time, there was a smear of blood across the infant's blanket. No message, no name, just silence screaming louder than gunfire. Lena's vision blurred for a second, emotion choking reason. Then she steadied herself. Whoever sent it wanted chaos, but chaos was something she had learned to command. She turned to Ava. "Bring the car around. I want the baby under protection, 24 hours. No one knows where she's kept until I say so." Ava nodded and ran. Lena looked once more at the bullet hole, the wolf's crest glinting faintly in the dim light. Her expression hardened. "Ethan," she whispered, voice low and dangerous. "If this is your message, I'm sending one back." She reached for her phone and dialed a number she swore she'd never use again. When the line picked up, the voice on the other end froze. "Lena?" She exhaled slowly. "You wanted a war, Ethan. You just started one." The call ended. She dropped the phone on the table, the weight of her choice hanging heavy in the air. Outside, thunder cracked across the skyline, lightning flashing over the city that had birthed them both. Somewhere, miles away in a tower of glass and shadows, Ethan Voss looked at his own phone as her words echoed through the line before it went dead. His reflection stared back, a ghost dressed in guilt, and for the first time in years, the white wolf smiled, cold, dangerous, and ready. The next morning, Chicago woke to headlines screaming of a joint bombing. One at Hart Industries, one at Voss Corporation. 2 explosions. 2 empires, and only one of them would survive what came next. The music in Club Nero was a pulse of danger, low, rhythmic, and alive with sin. 100 eyes watched from the corners as Ethan Voss stepped through the doors. The world seemed to tilt with him. Silence followed like oxygen being ripped out of the room. The white wolf had arrived. He was no longer dressed for business. His tailored suit was dark, his tie gone, the first buttons of his shirt undone. Rage looked good on him. It made him real again. The guards at the entrance backed away without command. The bartender froze mid-pour. Even the dancers on the upper balcony fell still, sensing something colder than death had just walked in. Ethan's gaze swept the club. Blue lights flickered against his face, sharpening the fury in his eyes. He didn't need to speak. Everyone already knew what had happened. The attack, the bullets, the chaos. Someone had used his name to send a message, and that message had nearly killed his ex-wife. He crossed the floor, boots echoing over marble, until he reached the back hall. 2 men waited outside a heavy iron door, guarding it like it was sacred. Ethan didn't slow. One of them tried to speak. "Sir," Marcus said. The rest of the sentence ended in a strangled breath as Ethan slammed the man into the wall. "Marcus doesn't speak for me," he growled. He shoved the doors open and stepped inside. The private lounge was dark, a haze of smoke and secrets. The air reeked of whiskey and betrayal. Marcus sat at the far end of the room, a glass in hand, the faintest smirk curling his lips. He had been Ethan's consigliere, his voice of logic, the one who kept the empire balanced when chaos threatened to drown it. Now, That same calm looked dangerous. Ethan threw something onto the table, metal clinking against glass. A pendant, silver shaped like a V. Explain, Ethan said. His voice low, razor sharp. Marcus didn't flinch. He took a slow sip from his glass before setting it down. Explain what? The hit. Ethan's eyes burned through him. Someone shot at Lena. Someone used my crest. And when I tracked the shooter, I found that. He pointed to the pendant. My mark. My bloodline. Marcus leaned back, folding his hands. Then you already know, don't you? It came from inside. Who gave the order? Marcus's smirk widened. You did. The silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. Ethan's jaw clenched. Choose your words carefully. I don't need to, Marcus said. Your men worship fear, Ethan. You built them that way. Every move they make is in your name, even when you don't ask for it. Ethan's hand curled into a fist. You're saying this is my fault? I'm saying, Marcus said, rising slowly, you created a world where loyalty isn't love. It's survival, and survival always chooses itself first. The truth landed like a blow. Ethan had always believed control was strength, but now control had turned against him. He moved closer, eyes narrowed. Tell me who gave the kill order. Marcus chuckled softly. You still think it's one person. You don't see it, do you? They've been waiting, Ethan, watching you soften. That photo, the woman, the child, it broke something in you. They saw it. Ethan's muscles tensed. What are you saying? I'm saying your own wolves are hungry, Marcus said. And you're no longer the alpha they fear. The words cut deeper than any knife. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. The air between them thickened, heavy with the memory of trust that once existed. Then, without warning, he grabbed Marcus by the collar and slammed him against the wall. The glass shattered, whiskey dripping down the wallpaper like blood. Ethan roared. Marcus didn't fight. His calm was infuriating. Start with yourself, he whispered. Ethan's hand trembled. He wanted to end him, to erase the smirk, the arrogance, but something stopped him. Marcus wasn't lying. He never lied. He released him, stepping back. His heart thundered against his ribs, his mind a storm of fragments. Lena, the baby, the bullet, the crest. Betrayal wasn't just outside. It was inside. Ethan turned away, running a hand through his hair. Get out, he said quietly. Marcus adjusted his suit, smirk returning. Of course. But you can't outrun what you built, Ethan. The door closed behind him, leaving the white wolf alone in the dark. He walked back through the club, ignoring the whispers, the fearful glances. He went straight to his car, a black Aston Martin waiting like a shadow. The city lights blurred as he sped through the streets. Rain began to fall, streaking the windshield like ghosts chasing his reflection. Every turn, every light carried weight. He'd clawed his way to the top through blood and precision, and now both were coming undone. When he reached the docks, his enforcer, Rico, was already waiting beside a tarp-covered body. Found him in the alley behind Nero, Rico said. The shooter. Ethan knelt and pulled back the tarp. The assassin's eyes were open, frozen in terror. A single bullet wound, clean shot to the temple, dead before we got there, Rico added. Ethan searched the man's jacket, finding only one item, a silver pendant, identical to the one he'd thrown at Marcus. He turned it over in his palm. The engraving on the back read a single word, blood, not a name. A message. Dispose of the body, Ethan ordered, rising. His voice was steady again, but his mind wasn't. Whoever did this knew him, his habits, his mark, his enemies. They wanted chaos, and they were winning. Back in his penthouse, Ethan poured himself a drink and stared out at the city. The skyline looked like a war waiting to happen. The firelight flickered against the glass, reflecting his face beside Lena's on a framed photo he hadn't been able to destroy. He reached for it, tracing her smile with his thumb. She used to tell him that no one could destroy him but himself. Maybe she'd been right. A knock came at the door. Rico entered, holding a file. We found something else, boss. The gun the shooter used. It's registered to one of our warehouses. Ethan froze. Which one? The one you shut down after Lena left. That name again. Her ghost haunting every corridor of his life. He set down his glass. Burn it, all of it. Every record, every tie. Rico hesitated. Boss, that warehouse also held your family archives. Ethan's head snapped up. What? Rico nodded. Your father's ledgers, the old boss insignia molds, the oath documents, everything. Someone's been inside recently. The security feed's gone. Ethan's chest tightened. The Voss archives weren't just history. They were bloodlines, the roots of his power. If someone had touched them, it wasn't business. It was personal. Get the footage back, Ethan ordered. Rico shook his head. Can't. It was erased remotely. But whoever did it left something behind. He handed Ethan a small envelope. Inside was a folded note and a Polaroid photo. The note read, "You can't protect blood from itself." Ethan flipped the photo. His hand stilled. It was the baby again, the same child from the hospital photo. But this time, the camera focused closer, zoomed on the child's wrist. A small scar curved along the skin, a faint silver line, exactly where Ethan's own childhood scar rested. He staggered back a step. His drink hit the floor, shattering into amber shards. No, it couldn't be. He'd left Lena before she told him she was pregnant. He'd buried that part of his life under layers of violence and control. But that scar, that mark, it wasn't coincidence. It was heritage. His pulse raced, panic clawing through the steel of his composure. He could feel his world shifting, cracking beneath him. The lies he built, the empire he controlled, all suddenly fragile against the truth. The phone on the desk buzzed once. Unknown number. He answered it. Breath caught in his throat. A woman's voice came through. Soft but broken, trembling with fury and pain. "You wanted blood?" "Ethan," she whispered. "Now you'll drown in it." The line went dead. Ethan stood in silence, the phone still in his hand, the city burning in his reflection. Outside, sirens screamed in the distance. The rain had turned to thunder, and for the first time since the day he took the name White Wolf, Ethan Voss realized he wasn't hunting ghosts anymore. They were hunting him. A sharp explosion rocks the night. Ethan's penthouse windows shatter outward. Through the smoke, a drone hovers, dropping a single metal card onto the floor. For the sins of the father, the heir will bleed. Ethan looks up, blood on his cheek, fury in his eyes, and whispers the name of the only person capable of striking him this deep, Lena. The night glittered with wealth and deceit. Inside the marble ballroom of the Celestine Hotel, chandeliers burned like captured stars, and the city's elite swayed beneath them in silk and secrets. Cameras flashed, laughter floated, and champagne flowed, as if the world outside hadn't been drowning in smoke and blood. It was Lena Hart's charity gala, her empire's public face. The press adored her for her elegance, her strength, her impossible comeback. They called her the Queen of Steel. None of them knew that her smile tonight was made of glass. She stood at the center of it all, radiant in a black velvet gown, her hair swept back, diamonds catching every flicker of light. On the surface, she was untouchable. But her mind wasn't in the room. It was still at that phone call, still replaying the chaos, still wondering if Ethan had truly sent that bullet, or if someone else was scripting their destruction. "Miss Hart," a reporter called. "What inspired tonight's cause?" Lena's lips curved into a practiced smile. "Healing," she said softly. "For those who've lost something they can't replace." The crowd applauded. They thought she meant the city's orphans. They didn't realize she meant herself. Then, as if summoned by the word loss, the doors opened. A hush fell across the room. He walked in. Tall, cold, devastating. The black suit, the silver cufflinks, the predator's calm that silenced noise by existing. Ethan Voss. The photographers froze. Every lens turned toward him. The music faltered. Conversations died mid-sentence. He didn't belong in this world of glitter and donos. He was danger in a room of diamonds. But he walked in like he owned it, because once he had owned her. Lena's breath caught. The champagne glass in her hand slipped, shattered against the floor. For a long moment, no one moved. The entire ballroom was suspended between heartbeat and ruin. He saw her across the crowd, and for the first time since the war began, Ethan looked human. There was pain behind that cold blue stare, regret twisting into resolve. He moved toward her. The crowd parted instinctively, the way prey yields to a wolf. When he stopped in front of her, silence wrapped the room. "Lena," he said quietly, voice roughened by too many ghosts. "We need to talk." Her eyes shimmered, not from fear, from fury. "We said everything the night you left me for money." He took a step closer, close enough that she could smell the faint trace of gunpowder beneath his cologne. "And you said I'd never have peace without you," he murmured. "You were right." Her jaw tightened. "Peace doesn't bring back what you killed." He flinched, just barely, but enough. "You think I ordered that hit?" "I don't think," she said, voice sharp as glass. "I saw your crest on that bullet." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Someone's using my mark, my blood. They want us at war." Lena's laughter was brittle. "And why would they want that, Ethan? You already burned me once. What's left?" He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. "Maybe the truth?" Her heart stuttered. "Truth?" The word meant nothing in their world. Before she could respond, the host stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the reunion of Chicago's most talked-about figures, Miss Hart and Mr. Voss." Cameras exploded in light. The crowd laughed awkwardly, unaware of the war simmering between them. Lena forced a tight smile, whispering under her breath, "Don't make a scene." Ethan's eyes flicked toward the flashing bulbs. "You think I care about a scene?" "Then why are you here?" she asked. He hesitated. For a fraction of a second, his mask cracked. "Because I needed to see if you're safe." Her chest tightened. The words hit something deep she didn't want to name. "You lost the right to protect me," she said. "The moment you sold your soul." He looked down, almost smiling. "And you think you kept yours?" That cut deep. She stepped back. "Leave before I forget the cameras are here." He didn't move. "You got my message?" "What message?" "The one someone else sent for me." Her pulse jumped. She studied his face, searching for deceit, but all she saw was exhaustion, the kind that came from years of running from ghosts. "I didn't touch you," he said softly. "Or the baby." Her breath caught. "Then who did?" Ethan's eyes flicked to the balcony above. "That's what I'm trying to find out." The night pressed on. The band started again, people pretending not to stare. But the air was electric, tension wrapped in silk. They danced once, not by choice, but by performance. Cameras demanded it. The city needed its illusion of beauty. His hand brushed her waist. Her pulse betrayed her. "I missed this," he murmured. "You missed control," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Maybe both." Their bodies moved in rhythm, but their eyes were war zones. Every turn, every step was a memory. The nights in hotel rooms, the promises, the betrayal. When the song ended, applause followed. They broke apart, both breathless for different reasons. Lena turned to walk away. Ethan's hand caught hers. "Someone's coming for you," he said. "Tonight," she froze. "You expect me to believe that after everything?" He nodded once. "You don't have to believe me. Just don't die." Before she could reply, the lights flickered. A soft hum grew from outside, an engine idling too close. Ethan's instincts screamed. His hand shot to her arm. "Down!" The explosion tore through the night. The ballroom windows shattered inward, glass raining like shrapnel. Screams filled the air. Smoke bled into the chandelier light as chaos erupted. Ethan shielded Lena, pushing her behind a marble pillar as the force rattled the ground. Outside, flames swallowed a black SUV, Lena's driver's vehicle. She stared, frozen. "That was your car," Ethan finished grimly. The heat from the blast reflected in his eyes. The fire painted his face in shades of guilt and rage. "It wasn't me," he said, voice low but steady. Lena's tears burned. "Then who wants me dead?" He looked toward the exit, scanning the smoke, his mind calculating angles, timing, intent. "Not who," he murmured. "What they want." She stared at him, trembling. "And what's that?" He turned back to her, blue eyes sharp as glass. "To destroy us both," sirens wailed in the distance. Security shouted orders. Lena's guests ran, leaving behind diamonds and panic. But Ethan and Lena stood still, locked in the center of chaos. For a brief second, there was silence again, the kind only fire can create. He looked at her face, soot and heartbreak making her more human than ever. "Come with me," he said. "Why?" "Because if you stay here, they'll finish what they started." Her chest rose and fell. Trusting him meant walking back into the cage she escaped, but dying in someone else's game wasn't an option. "Fine," she whispered. "But this time, Ethan, I'm not following." We walked side by side, his lips curved slightly. "Then let's walk." They moved through the smoke together, out of the ballroom, into the night's inferno. A sniper's scope tracked them from the rooftop opposite the hotel. Through the lens, 2 red dots glowed, one on Ethan's chest, one on Lena's heart. A voice crackled through a radio. "Target confirmed. The air is secure. Eliminate the parents." The trigger clicked, and the screen went black. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and smoke, a strange blend of safety and war. Lena's eyelids fluttered open too, the dim light seeping through heavy curtains. Her head throbbed, her throat dry. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Only the flash, the fire, and the sound of someone shouting her name through chaos. Then her vision steadied. Ethan Voss sat beside her. His immaculate white shirt was streaked with ash and blood. A bruise darkened his jaw. The gun resting on the table beside him looked freshly oiled, his silent companion through every nightmare he'd ever created. Lena's pulse raced. The last thing she remembered was the explosion, the screams, the heat, and Ethan dragging her through shards of glass as the world burned behind them. Her voice cracked. "Where are we?" Ethan didn't look up immediately. His eyes were locked on the flames dancing in the fireplace. "Safe house," he muttered. "My father built it during the First Russo War. Nobody knows it exists." Lena tried to sit up. Pain shot through her shoulder and she bit back a groan. Ethan moved instantly, steadying her with a hand that trembled almost imperceptibly. "Careful," he said. She flinched at his touch, shaking his hand off. "You should have left me there." Ethan's gaze finally met hers. Cold, unreadable, yet beneath the blue, there was something fractured. "You were the target, not me," he said quietly. "The Russos set you up to pull me out." Her laugh was hollow. "You think saving me fixes what you broke?" Ethan exhaled through his nose, jaw tightening. "No, but it's a start." The silence stretched between them, thick, suffocating, full of ghosts. Outside, rain lashed against the glass, each drop echoing like a memory neither could drown. Lena's eyes drifted to the faint scar on Ethan's wrist, the same mark she once kissed on the night he promised her forever. She looked away quickly. That word had died long ago. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Lena, I didn't order the hit. Someone used my name to—" A sharp creak interrupted him. Both froze. The air shifted. From the hallway came a soft thud. Then another. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, closing in. Ethan's hand moved to the gun without looking. His entire body tensed. The world around him narrowed to sound and instinct. The next second, the door burst open. One of his guards stumbled in, eyes wide, blood spilling down his throat. He fell forward, hitting the floor with a wet thud. Through the haze of gunpowder and smoke, a whisper slithered into the room. Marcus sends his love. Lena's blood went cold. Ethan was already moving, firing twice into the doorway, then slamming the door shut with his shoulder. Another shot shattered a mirror behind them. The bullet missed him by inches. "Get down!" he barked. She obeyed without argument this time, dropping behind the couch as shards of glass rained down. Her heart pounded so hard she could taste metal. Ethan reloaded with mechanical precision, every movement fueled by rage. "He's using my own men," he muttered. "Marcus is inside my walls." "Marcus?" Lena echoed, trying to breathe through the panic. "Your consigliere?" He gave a grim nod. "Was." Another explosion rattled the windows. The lights flickered. The safe house suddenly didn't feel so safe. They moved together. Unspoken coordination between two people who once shared everything, even silence. Ethan cleared the corridor. Lena grabbed a flashlight from the table. Smoke crawled along the ceiling. The bodies of two more guards lay by the stairs. The scent of betrayal was thicker than blood. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Why come after me?" Ethan's answer was low, almost lost under the storm. "Because you're the only thing left that can hurt me." They reached the lower hall, a corridor lined with old files, maps, and rusted weapons. Lena's eyes caught something near the overturned cabinet, a glint of silver under a pool of blood. She knelt, ignoring Ethan's warning shout, and pulled out a folder. It was blood-stained, half-burnt, but the title stamped across the top made her heart stop. "Paternity test. Confidential." Her trembling fingers opened it. One page remained intact. Ethan's name was printed at the top, and beside the word father, the box read in bold red ink, "False." Lena's breath hitched. Her vision blurred. She looked up slowly. Ethan stood across the room, guns still raised, eyes locked on her. He saw the file in her hands. The color drained from his face. "What is that?" he demanded. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The air between them cracked like lightning. For a second, neither moved. The storm outside roared like a warning. Then a single gunshot shattered the silence. The light went out, and when it flickered back to life, Ethan was gone. Only the folder lay open on the floor. The word "false" burning in Lena's mind like the mark of a new. While Lena's phone buzzed in her pocket, a private number. A distorted voice whispered through the line. "If you want to know who the father really is, come alone." The paper trembled in Ethan's hands, though his grip was stone. The world had narrowed to a single sheet of paper, one word bleeding through the fibers like poison. False. He stood in silence, the sound of the rain outside merging with the roar inside his head. Every breath scraped like broken glass. The fire crackled beside him, but its warmth didn't reach him. It couldn't. Not anymore. Lena stood across from him, pale and rigid, the shadows painting her face with guilt and fear. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For once, she had no control, no armor. "Ethan." She started softly, taking a step forward. He didn't look up. His voice came out low, hollow. "Say it's not true. It's a lie," she whispered. "Marcus, he's twisting everything. You know what he's capable of." His eyes lifted slowly. The eyes that once made her melt, now carved from ice. "Don't defend him," he said. "And don't lie to me." The air between them turned heavy. She could feel the anger building in him like a storm that had been waiting years to break. "Ethan, please." He raised the paper slightly, the single word trembling between them. "You expect me to look at this," he said, "and just pretend it means nothing?" Her throat tightened. "You think I'd carry another man's child? After everything?" He laughed, a cold, bitter sound that didn't belong to him. "I think I stopped knowing what you'd do the moment you walked out of my life." Her voice broke, raw and desperate. "You walked away first. For money, for power, whatever you thought you needed more than me. Don't you dare make me your sin again." He looked at her then. Really looked. The woman before him wasn't the fragile soul he'd left years ago. She was hardened, brilliant, dangerous. The world had turned her into something he barely recognized, and yet the ache in his chest told him he still loved her, that no amount of violence or betrayal could erase her from his blood. He turned away before she could see it. "You think this is Marcus?" he said, quieter now. "You think he's playing me?" "I know he is," she said, stepping closer. "He's dividing us. That's what he wants." Ethan's shoulders tensed. Maybe he doesn't have to try very hard. Lena froze. He set the file on the table, his movements controlled, mechanical. You walked away once because you thought I was the enemy, he said. Maybe you were right. Ethan, he didn't look back. You should leave before my men decide your leverage. The words hit her harder than any bullet. Don't do this, she whispered. Don't walk away again because of doubt. But he already had. The door closed behind him with a soft click, almost gentle, almost merciful. But the silence that followed was anything but. Lena stood alone in the room, staring at the paper that had just undone everything they'd begun to rebuild. The word false glared up at her like a curse. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The sound of her own heartbeat filled her ears, fast and wild. She sank into the chair, her mind racing. Marcus! It had to be him. He'd forged the file, planted it, timed it perfectly. He wanted Ethan unstable, easy to break, easy to control. She grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed Ethan's number. Voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. Damn it, Ethan. Outside, thunder rolled through the city. The storm was getting worse. She paced the room, replaying everything. Marcus's betrayal, the assassin's whisper, Ethan's hollow stare. It all fit too neatly, too perfectly. She turned toward the window and froze. Across the street, in the building opposite, a red laser blinked once against the glass. Then it vanished. Lena's pulse spiked. She ducked, rolling behind the couch just as the first bullet tore through the window. Shards of glass exploded into the air. Another shot followed, then silence. Her mind screamed one name. Marcus. When she looked up again, the laser was gone. But a shadow lingered near the window of the opposite building, tall, still, watching. Lena crawled to the desk, snatched the gun Ethan had left behind, and pressed her back to the wall. Her breathing came in sharp bursts. If Marcus thought she'd break, he'd underestimated her. She wasn't the same woman who once waited for Ethan to save her. She'd save herself now, and her child. Then her phone buzzed, a video call. Private number, no caller ID. She hesitated, answered. The screen flickered, static lines warping the image before it cleared. Marcus. He was seated in what looked like one of Ethan's warehouses. Concrete walls, dim lights, shadows moving in the background. But Lena's breath stopped when she saw what he held in his arms. A baby. Her baby. The tiny blue blanket, the soft curls, the way the infant's hand moved restlessly against Marcus's chest. It was all too real. Too cruel. Hello, Lena, Marcus said, his smile slow, poisonous. You look tired. Rough night? Her voice trembled. Where is he? What did you do to my child? Marcus chuckled softly. Relax, the baby's fine. For now. He adjusted the blanket almost tenderly, a mockery of affection. But let's not waste time pretending this is about motherhood, You know what I want. Her blood ran cold. If you hurt him... Oh, I don't intend to hurt anyone, Marcus interrupted smoothly. Unless you force me to. He leaned closer to the camera, his eyes glinting like steel. Here's the deal, sweetheart. Trade Ethan's empire for your child. Lena's stomach twisted. You think I have control over him? Marcus smiled wider. You will. You always did. You just never realized it. The screen flickered again. Marcus's men visible now behind him, armed and restless. Tick-tock, Marcus said, his tone almost playful. You've got 24 hours. Bring me Ethan's account keys, his offshore access, everything. Or I send the child back to you, piece by piece. The line cut. Lena stared at the black screen, the reflection of her own pale face staring back. Her hands shook. Her mind screamed. Ethan had left her again. But this time she couldn't afford to break. The war wasn't about love anymore. It was about blood. She rose slowly, the gun still in her hand. Her tears had dried. Her fear had turned to fire. If Marcus wanted to play with monsters, she'd show him the one he helped create. A message popped up on her phone. Incoming transfer. Access key. Voss master account. Ethan had sent it. Below it, a single line of text. Don't come for me. End him. The city didn't sleep that night. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled through the industrial district, and the streets gleamed wet under the glow of flickering neon. Chicago looked like it was holding its breath, waiting for blood. Inside a darkened penthouse, Lena Hart sat at Ethan's desk, her reflection mirrored in the glass wall before her. The city stretched beneath her like a beast made of lights and sin. She wasn't shaking anymore, not crying, not waiting for rescue. She was calculating. The air around her hummed with the soft clicks of a laptop, wires running across the mahogany desk, codes flowing in rapid sequence. Every flicker of the screen reflected in her eyes like fire. Ethan's empire, the empire Marcus wanted, was now her weapon. She had broken into his network before, years ago, when she'd needed proof of his betrayal. But this time was different. This time she wasn't breaking into Ethan's world. She was breaking out of it, straight into Marcus's. A map appeared on her screen, coordinates, cameras, a live feed of a warehouse on the river's edge. There, through the static, she saw it. The faint movement of guards, the flicker of firelight, and a small shadow behind bars moving weakly. Her child, her breath caught, but she forced herself to stay still. Panic was useless. Emotion was death. She downloaded the schematics, mapped every exit, memorized the guard rotations. The building wasn't just a warehouse. It was a fortress. Reinforced, laced with motion sensors and steel gates. Still, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed a pistol from Ethan's drawer, loaded it with precision and slipped it beneath her coat. No bodyguards. No backup. No Ethan. She moved like a ghost through the elevator, her heels clicking softly, a sound swallowed by thunder when she stepped out into the storm. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan was losing his mind. He stood in his office, drenched in rage and regret, the empty whiskey glass trembling in his hand. The message from Lena, her last, replayed in his head. Don't come for me. But he knew her too well. He knew the sound of resolve in her voice, the kind that ended in gunfire. He slammed the glass down, shattering it. Where is she? One of his lieutenants shifted nervously. Boss, she went dark. No tracker, no signal. She took one of your cars and Ethan's glare stopped him cold. Get me a location, he growled. We can't, sir. She wiped the system, even the security logs. For a moment, silence. Then Ethan turned towards the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes like the glow of an oncoming war. Then I'll find her myself. He grabbed his gun, his coat, and stormed into the rain. Lena arrived first. The warehouse loomed before her, massive, silent except for the distant rumble of thunder and the hiss of rain hitting rusted steel. She moved through the shadows, cutting cameras, slipping past guards. Every movement was surgical, trained, the result of years spent surviving in Ethan's world. Her heart pounded when she heard it, the faint, broken cry of her baby from somewhere inside. Her fingers tightened around the gun. She followed the sound, weaving through crates and machinery until she reached the center of the warehouse. Firelight flickered from a dozen oil drums, casting monstrous shapes across the walls, and there, in the middle of it, stood Marcus. He looked calm, almost elegant, wearing a dark suit despite the heat and smoke. Behind him, two of his men held the baby's small carrier. Lena stepped into the light. Marcus smiled, slow and cruel. I was wondering when you'd arrive. Her gun rose instantly. Give me my child. Of course, he said smoothly. After all, this was never about the baby, was it? He took a step forward, his voice dropping. This was about Ethan, about power, about the one thing he never learned, control. Lena kept her aim steady, but her mind was spinning. You used us both, Marcus's smirk widened. I made you both. You think Ethan built his empire alone? Half of his victories came from my strategies. My blood, my men, my deals. And what did he repay me with? Fear, disrespect. He paced slowly, circling her like a wolf. So I decided to take what mattered most to him. The woman, the child, the legacy. Lena swallowed hard. You're insane, he chuckled. Perhaps, but at least I'm honest about it. Then his smile faded, replaced by something sharper. Hand over the access keys, Lena. Ethan sent them, didn't he? Her heart skipped. How do you know that? He lifted a small device, flashing the intercepted transmission on screen. Because he's predictable. Outside, the storm roared. Tires screeched against wet asphalt. Ethan's car tore down the alley, headlights cutting through the darkness. He jumped out before the engine stopped, gun drawn, his pulse hammering. He could smell the smoke, hear the faint echo of voices through the steel walls. Lena? He moved fast, silent, lethal, a shadow with a heartbeat. When he entered the warehouse, chaos met him. Guards down, flames rising, Marcus's men shouting, and in the center of it all, Lena, bound, blood on her temple. The baby's cries cutting through the air like a blade. Ethan's world stopped. Marcus, he roared. The man turned, calm as ever, gun in hand. You always make such an entrance. Ethan's eyes blazed. You touch her again, you die. Marcus tilted his head. You had it all, Ethan. Money, power, love. And you lost each the same way, by underestimating what they were worth. Ethan raised his gun. You don't get to talk about worth. But before he could fire, Marcus snapped his fingers. Two of his men pulled the baby closer, their weapons aimed at the child. Lena screamed. Ethan froze, muscles locked, every instinct screaming to act. But one wrong move, and his world would end. Marcus smiled faintly. Now let's even the scales. He aimed directly at Ethan's chest. Time slowed. The storm outside sounded like gunfire in the distance. Lena's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The gun clicked, Marcus pulled the trigger, and Lena moved. She tore free from the ropes, lunging forward with every ounce of strength left in her body. The gunshot ripped through the air. Ethan caught her as she fell, warm blood spreading across his hands, his shirt, his soul. Her eyes fluttered open, faint, fading. Ethan. He held her close, shaking his head. Don't you dare. Her lips trembled into a broken smile. Told you. I wouldn't let anyone take what's mine. Her hand slipped from his. Ethan turned toward Marcus, something primal, unrecognizable burning in his eyes. But before he could move, the baby's cry pierced the air again, and Marcus was gone. Smoke, chaos, blood. Lena lay still. The firelight flickered against her pale skin, painting her in gold and crimson. Ethan's world went silent. From somewhere in the shadows, a voice whispered through a radio, Marcus's voice, distorted and cold. You think she died for love? Wait till you see who she died for. Rain lashes against the shattered windows, blurring the neon lights outside into streaks of red and gold. The warehouse is chaos. Smoke, fire, and the echo of gunfire fading into silence. Ethan drops to his knees, the world narrowing to the sight of Lena in his arms. Her blood runs through his fingers, hot and vivid against his skin. Life slipping through the cracks like time he can't reclaim. Her body trembles once, twice, then stills. Stay with me, Ethan murmurs, voice cracking as he presses his palm against her wound. Don't you dare leave me again. Lena's eyelids flutter. A broken smile ghosts across her lips. You came back. I never left, he breathes, though even he knows it's a lie. Marcus's laughter breaks the silence, low, poisonous, echoing across the warehouse. He leans against a rusted beam, clutching his chest where the bullet grazed him earlier. His grin is wide, bloody, poetic, isn't it? He rasps. The empire ends as it began, with your weakness for her. Ethan doesn't answer. His eyes are calm now, too calm, the kind of calm that comes when a man's soul is already burning. He places Lena gently on the ground, stands, and walks toward Marcus. Each step echoes like judgment. Marcus raises his gun, but his hand shakes. Ethan doesn't even flinch. He draws his weapon slowly, smoothly, no hesitation, no rage. Just precision, one clean shot, Marcus mocks, coughing blood. That's all you've ever been good for. Ethan's reply is a whisper. You should have aimed for her heart. That's where I keep my monsters, he fires. The bullet hits dead center. Marcus jerks, eyes wide, the laughter freezing on his tongue. He collapses, a puppet cut from its strings. For a moment, the only sound is the rain hammering the roof. Ethan stands over the body, his breath ragged, his gun lowering slowly. Marcus's blood spreads across the floor, winding toward Lena like a scarlet river, the price of power paid in full. He turns back to her. Her breathing is shallow now, her eyes half-lidded. But she's alive. He kneels beside her, hands shaking as he presses a cloth against the wound. It's over, Lena, he's gone. You're safe. She tries to speak but coughs instead, a thin thread of red staining her lips. You still protect me, always, he whispers, and this time the tears come freely. They fall onto her cheek, mixing with the rain, a baptism of guilt and love. The faint wail of sirens cuts through the storm, distant but growing. Blue lights flash faintly in the night beyond the shattered windows. Ethan exhales. The weight of everything he's done, every crime, every betrayal, it all crashes over him at once. He glances around the warehouse. His men are gone, scattered or dead. Marcus's empire is ash. His own reputation, ruined. All that's left is her, the woman he broke for power, the woman who still chose to take a bullet for him. He brushes a strand of wet hair from her face. You'll live. You hear me? Her voice is barely a whisper. You can't fix everything with a gun. I'm not trying to fix it, he says softly. Just trying to make it right. The sirens grow louder, closer now. Red and blue lights dance against the walls as police vehicles skid to a halt outside. Ethan looks down at Lena once more. They'll take care of you. Her hand finds his wrist, weak but deliberate. And you? He manages a faint, broken smile. I'll finish what I started. The warehouse doors crash open. Flashlights cut through the smoke. Voices shout commands. Chicago PD! Drop your weapon! Ethan doesn't resist. He places the gun on the floor, slowly raising his hands. Save her first, he says. His voice is low but firm, echoing through the ruined space. She needs help. Officers rush past him, tending to Lena. Paramedics follow, kneeling beside her with urgency and precision. Ethan doesn't move as the handcuffs click around his wrists. The cold metal bites into his skin. But for the first time in years, he feels something close to peace. He looks over his shoulder, watches as they lift Lena onto a stretcher. Her hand slips free, dangling, streaked in his blood and hers. Tell her. He begins, but the words die. There's nothing left to say. They push him toward the waiting patrol cars. Rain pours harder, drenching everything, washing the blood, the guilt, the empire away. The officer shoves him into the back seat. The door slams shut. Ethan turns his head, watching through the glass as the paramedics load Lena into the ambulance. For one fragile second, their eyes meet. She mouths something. 3 words before the door closes. He knows what she said. He's always known. As the convoy moves, the city lights flash past like ghosts. The streets blur, bridges, skyscrapers, and memories all bleeding into one another. Every siren feels like a confession. Every raindrop feels like penance. He stares at his reflection in the window. Hollow eyes, bruised face, blood drying on his collar. The white wolf, caged at last. Yet beneath the calm, a flicker of unease lingers. Something's wrong. A police radio crackles in the front seat. The driver glances at his partner. You hearing that? Yeah. Dispatch says the ambulance never made it to County General. Ethan's gaze snaps up. What? The officers exchange looks. Static fills the car. Repeat, the dispatcher says, voice strained. Ambulance 17 has gone off route. GPS signal lost near the East Bridge. Ethan's pulse spikes. He leans forward, his voice cutting through the silence. Turn around. The cop beside him shakes his head. You're under arrest, Voss. Ethan's eyes go dark. Then arrest me after. In one motion, he slams his shoulder into the door, the lock snapping under pressure. The car skids. Shouts erupt. He's gone before they can react. Out into the storm, sprinting toward the city lights. Toward the one thing that still matters. Somewhere beyond the rain, a siren wails again. Not police. Not rescue. Something colder. He stops at the bridge, breathing hard. Scanning the empty road, the air smells of gasoline and metal. Then he sees it. The ambulance, overturned. Wheels spinning slowly. No movement inside. He runs to it, ripping the door open, glass cutting his hands. The stretcher's empty. Blood smears lead to the edge of the bridge and vanish. Ethan's heart slams against his ribs. She's gone. A phone buzzes in his pocket. Unknown number, he answers, breath ragged. Where is she? A voice answers, distorted and calm. Power has its price, Ethan. You paid yours. Now let's see what she's worth. The line goes dead. Ethan stares at the dark river below, jaw clenching, eyes burning like frost and fire. Lena's blood, Marcus's corpse, the Empire's ashes, all of it led here, and the war isn't over. Ethan lifts his face toward the storm, rain slicing across his skin. Behind him a black car idles, engine humming, tinted window rolling down. A familiar voice drifts out of the dark. Get in, Voss, if you want her back. You'll have to burn the world. The world didn't stop when Ethan Voss died. It never does for men like him. It simply sighed, whispered his name once more through the alleyways, and moved on, pretending it didn't miss the chaos he brought. 3 months had passed since the explosion. Chicago's skyline gleamed cleaner now, sharper, as though the city itself had scrubbed away the memory of his empire. Lena Hart stood on the courthouse steps, holding her child close. The morning sun broke through the clouds, slicing across her face, glinting off the black marble pillars behind her. Cameras clicked from every direction, hungry for a glimpse of the woman who had once been married to the White Wolf. But Lena didn't look at them. Her gaze stayed fixed on the judge's final words, still echoing in her head. Case closed. Ethan Voss, deceased, confirmed. The courtroom had gone silent after that. She hadn't wept, not in front of them, but her knuckles had turned white where she held her daughter's blanket. The child cooed softly, blissfully unaware that the man whose eyes she'd inherited was gone forever. Lena turned away from the flashbulbs. The sound of her heels on the courthouse stone was steady, too steady. She didn't want the world to see her fall apart, because she wasn't the woman who used to break. Not anymore. Hart Industries rose again from the ashes. Lena, sharper, reborn under her command. The same city that once whispered Mafia wife now hailed her as the phoenix of the boardroom. She sat behind a glass desk one evening, staring at the city lights far below. Her reflection looked back, older, stronger, lonelier. The press loved her power. The men who once betrayed her now envied her control. But when the office emptied and the silence returned, power felt like another kind of cage. She still wore her wedding ring, not out of love, but memory, a reminder of what survival costs. A photograph sat framed beside her monitor, Ethan holding their newborn daughter. His smile was faint, genuine, unguarded. She'd taken it before he turned himself in, before everything burned. Now it was the only proof she had that he'd ever been capable of love. At night, after the meetings and deals, Lena drove to the edge of the city, a place few dared to visit, a small, hidden cemetery near the river. The grave sat beneath an oak tree, marked by a single word carved in black granite, Voss no flowers. No epitaph, just his name, cold and final. She stood there each month. The same ritual, one candle, one whisper, one unanswered prayer. Her daughter, now toddling, with Ethan's same ice blue eyes, always reached toward the stone. Giggling like she recognized something she couldn't name. Lena would smile then. Even through the ache, "He's watching," she'd whisper. "Somewhere." The wind always stirred when she said it, like the world agreed. But lately the wind had changed. Each time she visited, she felt watched. The shadows shifted too deliberately, the air too heavy, the silence too sharp. She told herself it was paranoia, that after everything she'd lived through, bullets, betrayals, blood, her mind simply didn't trust peace. And yet one night, she found something that stole her breath, a cigarette butt, still warm, on the edge of the grave, and beside it, a silver cufflink, engraved with a wolf's head. Her heartbeat stuttered. It was the same one Ethan wore at their wedding. She looked around, but the cemetery was empty. Only the trees moved, whispering secrets to the dark. "Impossible," she murmured. "He's gone." Still she pocketed the cufflink. Couldn't leave it behind. That night she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every flicker of shadow made her turn her head. When she finally closed her eyes, she dreamed of rain, fire, and Ethan standing across from her, untouched by time. He didn't speak, just looked at her with that same unreadable calm. When she reached for him, he vanished into smoke. She woke up with tears on her face and his name in her throat. Weeks passed. The world kept turning. Her empire expanded overseas. She shook hands with men who once knelt to Ethan. But at night, the same haunting returned. Cigarette smoke outside her window. Footsteps on her balcony. The faintest scent of his cologne in the hallway. Sharp, clean, dangerous. Her security team found nothing every time, and yet she started locking the doors again. She told herself it was for the baby's safety, but she knew it was something else, something she couldn't name. The feeling that Ethan wasn't gone. One rainy evening, after putting her daughter to sleep, Lena stood by the window, staring at the skyline. Lightning crawled across the horizon like veins of light. She whispered to the empty room, "If you're out there, Ethan." "Let me go," silence answered. Then a single vibration against the glass table. Her phone lit up. Unknown number. Her pulse skipped. She hesitated, then answered. Static filled the line. No voice, just breathing. "Who is this?" No response. Her chest tightened. If this is a sick joke, then a low voice, rough, familiar, alive, cut through the static. "You kept your promise." "Fireproof!" The phone slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a sharp crack. Her knees nearly buckled. She knew that voice. It wasn't memory. It wasn't a dream. It was him. Ethan. Her hand trembled as she picked up the phone again, staring at the screen. But the call was gone. No number, no trace. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air colder. She turned toward the window, and for a split second, lightning flashed, illuminating a figure standing across the street. Tall, still, watching. Her breath caught. The outline was unmistakable. Broad shoulders, sharp jaw, the way he held his hands behind his back, the white wolf. Then the thunder rolled, and he was gone. Lena pressed her palm against the glass, whispering into the storm. "Ethan." But only the rain answered. She looked down again and noticed something new. On the balcony railing, a message carved into the steel. Just 2 words. "Not yet." Lena backs away from the window, heart racing. The lights in her penthouse flicker once, then go out completely. In the reflection of the glass, behind her a shadow moves, and from the dark, that same low voice murmurs. Closer this time. "They think I'm dead." "Lena, let's keep it that way." The night was quiet. Too quiet for a city that had once lived on the sound of screams. Chicago's skyline glimmered under the mist, as if trying to remember what peace felt like. Inside a penthouse once filled with guns, secrets and ghosts, Lena Hart stood by the window, her reflection fractured against the glass. The woman she saw was no longer fragile. She had built empires, lost love, survived betrayal, and yet tonight she felt that old ache again. The air shifted. A whisper, faint, familiar. You still stare at the city when you can't sleep. Her breath hitched. That voice she had buried, mourned, cursed, prayed to, all in the same heartbeat. She turned slowly, and there he was, Ethan Voss, alive. He stood in the doorway like a shadow resurrected, thinner, scarred, the fire dimmed but not gone. His suit hung looser now, his hands trembled slightly. The man who had once been legend was now just flesh and regret. For a long moment, they simply stared, the space between them heavy with the ghosts of every word they'd never said. Lena finally whispered, "You're supposed to be dead." A faint smile touched his lips. Tired. Real, I was. He took a slow step forward, the floor creaking under the weight of silence. "I made a deal," he said quietly. "They let me die on paper, so you could live free." Her vision blurred. All the fury she'd held inside for months, all the grief that had hardened into stone. It cracked. She wanted to scream, to run, to hit him, to hold him. Instead, she whispered, voice breaking, "You left me in the dark again." He nodded, eyes glistening. "If I hadn't, you wouldn't be standing here." Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop. Them. She hated that he still had that power to shatter her with a single truce. He took another step closer. "Don't deserve this," he said softly. "But I needed to see you. Needed to know if you survived me." She exhaled shakily. "I did more than survive, Ethan. I learned how to live without you." He gave a slow nod, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "I always knew you would." The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of years, of loss, of things they had never buried properly. The man who once ruled Chicago now looked at her like she was the only thing that had ever been real. And then he asked, softly, like a prayer, "May I meet her?" Lena's heart stuttered. For a moment she couldn't breathe. She simply nodded. He followed her down the hall, every step echoing with memory. The walls were lined with photos. Lena at charity galas, at conferences, always poised. But one photo stopped him cold. Lena holding their daughter, smiling. He reached out, fingertips trembling just short of the glass. Lena whispered, "She's in here." They entered the nursery. The air smelled of lavender and lullabies. Nothing like the blood-soaked nights he came from. A soft glow filled the room from a nightlight shaped like a moon. In the crib lay a tiny girl, no more than a year old. Her hair was dark like her mother's, but her eyes, blue. The same piercing blue that had once made men freeze. Ethan froze too. He went to his knees without thinking. The wolf, brought low by something pure. He didn't speak for a long time. He couldn't. His throat tightened as the little girl stirred and looked up at him, blinking curiously. She didn't cry. She didn't fear. She just looked, and in that gaze, something inside him, something cold and jagged, melted. Lena knelt beside him, her voice barely a whisper. "Her name is Hope." He let out a fragile laugh, one that cracked halfway through. "Hope," he repeated, the word foreign on his tongue, as if it didn't belong in his world. Then he looked at Lena, tears cutting through the dirt on his face. "Then maybe I still have some." They sat there for what felt like forever. Him, her, and the little heartbeat that tied them together. No empire, no war, no betrayal. Just three souls trying to remember what peace was. Lena finally spoke. "What happens now?" Ethan exhaled. "Now I stay gone. The feds think I'm dead. The streets have new kings. My face in daylight would destroy what you've built." She frowned, eyes sharp with hurt. "And that's enough for you? To disappear while we live like ghosts?" He shook his head. "No, but I don't get to choose peace, Lena. I stole too much of it already." Lena stood, crossing her arms, that steel returning to her. Don't you dare act like a martyr. You think I built this life to live in fear? You think she'll grow up believing her father was a myth? Ethan looked up at her. This woman he had broken and who still stood taller than him. You're right, he said softly. She deserves truce. Lena blinked. Surprised by the surrender in his tone, he rose slowly, moving toward her. His hand brushing hers, the first touch they'd shared in years. Tell her, he murmured, that her father loved her enough to let her forget him. Lena's tears fell harder now, but her voice was steady. And if she remembers anyway? He smiled faintly. Then maybe she'll remember the best parts. A soft knock interrupted them. Ethan froze. Eyes darting to the door, Lena tensed. Outside, a shadow moved past the frosted glass. Slow, deliberate. Ethan stepped forward, hand already reaching for the pistol beneath his jacket. Stay behind me, he whispered. Lena's breath caught. Who is it? Ethan didn't answer. He opened the door. No one. Just an envelope lying on the floor, damp from the rain. He picked it up carefully. No markings, no return address, only his name written in neat cursive. Lena recognized the handwriting instantly. Marcus's. But Marcus was dead. Ethan tore it open. Inside, a single playing card, the King of Spades, and written across it in red ink, you buried one ghost, but not the right one. Ethan's jaw tightened. His pulse quickened. He turned toward Lena, his voice low and sharp again. They know I'm alive. Her eyes widened. Then we run. He shook his head. No, we finish it. Lena looked at the crib. Their daughter sleeping, unaware of the storm returning. Ethan. He stepped forward, the wolf glinting again in his eyes. You once said I'd never have peace without you, he murmured. You were right, but peace means nothing if it comes at the cost of her safety. Lena swallowed hard. Then promise me you'll come back this time. He looked at her. The woman who once tamed the monster in him. I will, he said quietly, because now I finally have something worth surviving for. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering, reverent, then to his daughter's tiny hand, and with one last look, he disappeared into the rain, vanishing the same way he always did, silently, completely. Lena stood in the doorway long after he was gone, the night pressing against her like a secret. Outside thunder rolled, low, distant, but coming closer. She held the playing card in her hand, the ink bleeding into her skin. Her reflection in the window looked almost like his, cold, determined, alive. You can't kill a ghost, she whispered. But you can hunt one. She turned off the lights, locking the door behind her. The city below flickered awake, sensing the shift. The storm wasn't over. He conquered the world, but it was her forgiveness that made him a king. And somewhere in the shadows, the white wolf walked again. Not for power, not for vengeance, but for love reborn in the dark.